Chapter 186, How the fuck did Itaka kill them all? While Fujin and Miko talked, Genji and Fujin's shadow clone reached the battlefield. Genji hid the same way as Masaru had while Fujin's clone stayed away and observed from a long distance. He had no intention of interfering in the fight. With Masaru's help, Akihiko finally had the upper hand. They inflicted injuries on Zankoku frequently. But all of his injuries healed automatically. Genji was stunned. He thought, how do I sneak attack someone who heals without any jutsu? Fujin's clone too was shocked. He watched the fight as he analyzed, this guy is strong. Ridiculously so. While Haiden couldn't be killed, I don't recall him having such a healing ability. Tisk, now I am even more interested in his blood jutsus. I hope Hiruzen orders the Yamanakas to dig out all the information from his brain. Though asking it from Hiruzen would require some effort. He no longer rewards me sadly. After observing for a while, Genji decided, my sneak attacks work on the basis that I would injure my prey critically or trap him in a genjutsu. It's pointless to hide against an opponent like him. The kid made a good decision to not show up here. Genji revealed himself by throwing some shurikens at Zankoku. Zankoku barely dodged them. His expression grew grim as he saw another opponent. He asked, you killed all my priests. Disbelief could be felt in his voice. Masaru replied, that is the case. You are all by yourself. Stop your misery and surrender. Only then you would live. Hearing those words, Zankoku began to laugh loudly like a lunatic. He said loudly, do you think that killing those weaklings will make me surrender? I will sacrifice all of you to Lord Jashin and get even more blessings from him. As he was speaking, he began bleeding. Soon, his entire body was covered in blood. His chakra, which was getting exhausted, spiked once again. Without paying any attention to his defense, he moved towards the Uchihas. Akihiko and Masaru's expressions grew grim. Zankoku closed the distance and swung his arm at them. Multiple drops of blood were released from his arm at the Uchihas. They immediately flickered away. Zankoku chased them. Not wanting to waste chakra unnecessarily, the Uchihas tossed explosive tags at him to hinder his path. But Zankoku ignored it all and continued the chase. Fortunately, he wasn't as fast as the Uchihas. While engaging in combat, Akihiko said, Genji, what's the status of others? Genji threw a kunao at Zankoku and said, Miko and Shunko are injured. Fujin is fine but his chakra is very low. Akihiko instructed, okay, leave this battlefield. Team up with Fujin and get Sara out. Leave a clone to watch over Shunko and Miko. Genji replied, all right. He flickered away from the battlefield. Akihiko looked at Masaru and shouted, Masaru, let's go all out. We will keep him tied down here. Masaru nodded and launched a fire dragon at Zankoku. A blood armor formed on Zankoku as he rushed into the fire dragon. However, unlike a normal fire dragon jutsu, this one had dozens of explosive tags in it. The fire dragon caused a massive explosion while Zankoku was in it. His momentum was finally stopped. Without waiting for the dust to clear up, Akihiko flickered into the spot of the explosion. Zankoku's body was being healed when Akihiko attacked him once again. He was blasted back as he cursed in his mind, how many fucking explosive tags do these Uchihas have? Bastards have used more than 1,000 so far. Despite the damage, Zankoku counterattacked immediately. Akihiko and Masaru engaged in an intense fight. Fujin's clone watched as the battle went on. After a few minutes, Fujin was awed. He thought, Holy fuck. These two are very good. I didn't expect Masaru to be this good as well. And Akihiko is a beast as well. However, he suddenly had a thought. A thought that troubled him a lot. He thought, if these guys are so strong, how the fuck did a 13-year-old Itaka kill them all by himself? Even with Obito's help, killing all of them in a single night would have to be a Herculean task. After all, Akihiko isn't the only elite jounin in the Uchiha clan. From what I remember, there are 4 more elite jounins other than him and Fugaku in the Uchiha clan. And they also have far more jounins than any other clan in Konoha. Not to mention, not everyone would give up and offer their lives like Fugaku and Mikoto. In fact, I doubt anyone did so. So is Itaka so ridiculously overpowered, or will there be some other factors involved as well? Fujin's clone tried thinking, but he couldn't figure it out. Even with 2 S-rank ninjas, killing so many strong ninjas in a few hours didn't seem to make any sense. Especially after he had just witnessed the abilities of some of the Uchihas. In the end, he concluded, either there were more factors involved in the massacre, or the gap between a rank A and rank S ninja is way bigger than what I remember. He sighed, if it is the second case, then reaching that level will be a lot tougher. While the fight was going on, Genji moved towards Fujin. He created a shadow clone and dispersed it to send a message to his clone, which was looking after Shunko. The clone carried Shunko and moved towards Fujin's location. Fujin and Miko were chatting casually. Miko finally managed to get up and sit. Suddenly, Fujin looked away in a direction. Miko asked, "What happened?" Fujin replied, "Genji is back for some reason." "Did they already win?" At the next moment, Genji appeared in front of them. He said, "Fujin, you'll be helping me get Sara out." Fujin raised an eyebrow. He asked, "What's the situation?" Normally Genji wouldn't have wasted time. But since he was waiting for his clone, he said, "The opponent has a very high regenerative ability and is immune to genjutsu. We need Sara's Fuinjutsu to trap him." Fujin and Miko were surprised. Miko said, "I didn't think the opponent would be so strong." Genji's clone finally arrived. He was carrying Shunko on his back. Genji said, "Fujin, follow me." Miko quickly said, "I want to come too." Genji looked at her and shook his head. He said, "No, you are too weak right now. If he assaults us when we are getting Sara out, you will be a burden." Without waiting for her reply, he left. Fujin followed him. They arrived at the place where the cave had collapsed. Fujin said, "Uncle Sara should be alright. I guess he didn't come out as he needs to stay there to ensure the kids are safe." Genji nodded and said, "Yeah. I guess that he created some barriers to keep them safe. So getting the kids out will put them at risk. Let's just go down and see what the situation is." He made hand signs and disappeared into the ground. Fujin followed him. After reaching down, they both noticed 5 pairs of chakra signatures. Fujin said, "The one in the north has the highest chakra level. The rest should be clones." Genji and Fujin went towards them. They moved until they reached the barrier. Genji knocked on the barrier. Sara and Haru were meditating to regain their chakra quickly. As soon as they heard the knock, both opened their eyes and looked at the spot Genji tapped. Seeing that it was allies, they relaxed. Sara made a hand sign and created an opening in the barrier. Fujin and Genji got in. Without wasting any time, Genji briefed Sara about the situation. Sara and Haru frowned after hearing about Zankoku's abilities. Sara made a shadow clone and said, the barrier needs me to monitor. So I'll leave a shadow clone here. Haru and Fujin stay here and ensure that the kids remain safe. Genji, come with me. Everyone nodded and followed Sara's instructions. Fujin and Haru were low on chakra, so Sara didn't involve them in the fight. Sara and Genji left, leaving Haru, Fujin and Sara's clones to look after the kids. Sara's clone said to Fujin, "We shouldn't be in any danger here. The barrier can withstand all the weight above it and can withstand some attacks too. The only danger is if that Grand Priest decides to launch an all-out assault on the barrier. But that isn't likely to happen. So just relax and focus on recovering your chakra." Fujin nodded and sat in a meditative posture. Sara and Genji reached the battlefield and observed from a distance. Akihiko and Masaru were engaged in an intense battle. Both were breathing heavily, but so was Zankoku. His inability to land a hit on the two Uchihas in front of him annoyed him. Sara observed Zankoku's fighting style and jutsus carefully and began analyzing and calculating how he should trap Zankoku. Chapter 187, The Result. After observing for a minute, Sara said, "He is very strong. I'm surprised that someone so strong has managed to keep his identity and ability hidden for so long." Genji asked, "Can you trap him with Fuinjutsu jutsu?" Sara replied, "It'll be tough. Hopefully, Akihiko and Masaru will keep him occupied. Keep an eye on the battle. If he suspects something and tries looking for me, you'll expose yourself and attack him." Genji nodded. Inscribing seals around the battlefield would need time. And anything could happen in battle. His job would be to ensure that Sara's presence stays hidden. Sara began inscribing seals around the place where the fighting was happening. Genji followed him closely. Luckily, Zankoku's entire attention was on Akihiko and Masaru. Since Sara didn't leak any killing intent or take any actions that would directly threaten him, Zankoku stayed oblivious to his actions. Akihiko and Masaru were oblivious to Sara's actions too and fought intensely. Multiple fires were burning in the area due to their fire jutsus. A lot of the ground was dyed in blood. Akihiko and Masaru stayed away from such areas. Zankoku's blood manipulation had raised their alertness to the maximum. Fujin's clone, who was secretly observing, had to change his locations a few times due to Zankoku's wide area attacks accidentally targeting his locations. After a few minutes, Zankoku stopped attacking. He looked at Akihiko and Masaru. They were breathing heavily. Though there weren't any critical injuries on them, Zankoku knew that they wouldn't last for much longer. He said, "You won't last much longer." Masaru was looking for opportunities to waste time. He said while breathing heavily, "We can still go on for hours." "You haven't seen anything yet." Zankoku laughed and replied, "And how would you do that without any chakra? It's only a matter of time before you drop dead. But, I have an offer for you too." Akihiko squinted his eyes and asked, "What offer?" Zankoku answered, "Serve Lord Jashin. I'll accept you as my priests and teach you the ways of Lord Jashin. When I complete the ritual, I will become the strongest person in the world. Then you can rule the world alongside me." Both Akihiko and Masaru were speechless by his confidence. However, neither showed it on their face. Akihiko stayed quiet for some time before saying, "I need a few minutes to think." However, Zankoku said, "No, tell me your answer right now. Either you agree, or you die." Akihiko put on a thoughtful face. He looked at Masaru and asked, "What are your thoughts?" Masaru thought and answered after a few seconds, "His proposal is tempting. But what about our families? We can't abandon them." Zankoku heard his answer and said, when you serve Lord Jashin, all your fellow believers are your family. If you want to, you can convert your current family too. Masaru replied, that sounds good. But what if my wife or son doesn't want to follow Lord Jashin? You know the new generation doesn't believe in God. His question stumped Zankoku. However, Zankoku soon realized that something was amiss. He looked at them. 2 spears made of blood appeared in his arms as he threatened, enough wasting time. Give me your answer now. Masaru said, Akihiko, I will trust your decision. Anger formed on Akihiko's face. He looked at Masaru and shouted, why the fuck do you always leave tough decisions to me? For one fucking time think with your own brain. Masaru barked back, what the fuck do you mean? Didn't you go around saying that you are the leader since you were a kid? So make a fucking decision. Akihiko shouted back, why you runt? However, his shout was interrupted by Zankoku throwing the spears at them. Both immediately dodged. Zankoku's face, which already was full of horrifying scars, was dark. He said, do you two think that I am a fool? A smirk formed on Akihiko and Masaru's lips. Though they didn't say anything, anyone could see their answer. Zankoku was about to attack again when he felt a chakra behind him. He quickly turned around to see Saru some distance from him. A smile could be seen on his face as he made the confrontation hand seal. In the next second, a barrier appeared around Zankoku. Zankoku quickly moved and punched the barrier with full force, but there was no dent on the barrier. He quickly tried escaping underground, but there was a barrier on the ground as well. Soon, more barriers began forming. Zankoku was trapped in a 3-layer barrier formation. He was inside the first layer. Akihiko and Masaru stood in the second layer. Sara and Genji joined them. They stood outside the barrier under which Zankoku was trapped. Realizing the danger, Zankoku attacked the barrier with full power in order to break free. His attacks made the barrier shake, but it didn't break. Masaru smirked and taunted him, you should have surrendered when you had the chance. Zankoku stopped struggling and sat down. He replied, the barrier is strong, but not strong enough. Once my chakra recovers, I can break through it. And though I am trapped, you can't attack me either. However, Saru smirked and replied, I am not a half-assed seal master like your priest. He grabbed a kunai with an explosive tag attached and threw it at Zankoku. The kunai traveled through the barrier like it was air. Zankoku's eyes widened. A blood barrier appeared in front of him. The explosive tag exploded, but he was safe. Saru said, this barrier allows one-way travel. Meaning, we can attack you however much we want to. And you can only endure our attacks without being able to counterattack. How long do you think you will last? Zankoku's expression became grim. Immediately, layers of blood surrounded him. A multilayered cocoon formation of blood protected him. Masaru taunted, our chakra might have hit rock bottom, but we still have thousands of explosive tags. How long do you think you will last? Without another word, the Uchihas encircled the barrier. Everyone began throwing explosive tags into the barrier. Huge explosions took place in the barrier. The Uchihas, who were standing outside it, didn't feel anything at all. Slowly, the layers of cocoons began breaking apart. Fujin's clone couldn't hear their words but sweat dropped as he saw that scene. He thought, how shameless. This is just bullying. They used so many explosive tags during the fighting. And now they have used at least 100 more. Do Uchihas don't know the difference between a normal paper and an explosive paper tag? No wonder Miko was spamming explosive tags in the Chunin exams. It's as if they have a printing factory to make them. After enduring a few hundred explosive tags, all of Zankoku's defenses crumbled. His body began taking the explosions head-on. His body tried to heal itself, but the amount of damage he was taking was too high. Akihiko was observing him carefully with his Sharingan. He kept observing until his chakra reserves ran out. He instructed, "Stop." Immediately all Uchiha stopped. Akihiko grabbed his tanto. Chakra flowed through it. He threw it inside the barrier. Zankoku had no energy to move. The tanto sliced through his neck and beheaded him. The four Uchihas observed him to see if he could still heal up. So did Fujin's shadow clone. He wondered, will he be alive like Haiden? Or does he not have the same sort of immortality that Haiden will have in the future? Zankoku's body didn't move. He was dead. Akihiko looked at Genji and said, "Make a shadow clone and check him." Genji nodded and made a shadow clone. The clone entered the barrier and checked. Zankoku's body was in terrible shape. The explosions had destroyed a lot of his flesh. Whatever flesh he had was completely burnt. Both his eyes were destroyed. His nose, ears, and lips were destroyed too. Even his bones were cracked in many places. After inspecting, Genji's clone said, "He is completely dead." Akihiko and Masaru sighed in relief. They had fought him the most and knew what frightening vitality he had. Akihiko said, "Sara, seal his body properly. We will study him thoroughly." Sara nodded and began sealing Zankoku's body. Akihiko said, "In the mission report, we will mention his abilities and say that his body was thoroughly destroyed by our explosive tags. Nothing was left behind. Don't tell Haru or the kids about this either. You can tell Haru later, but no word to the kids." On hearing that, the three Uchihas became serious and nodded. Sara asked, "Is it due to?" Akihiko interrupted, "Yes. The relationship between the village and the clan is deteriorating. Though Fugaku-sama is against the coup right now, it is probably unavoidable unless the village elders stop mistreating us. If the coup does happen, then the abilities of this guy would help us immensely if we can learn them." Everyone nodded. They had seen what fearsome abilities Zankoku had. If multiple Jounin-level Uchihas could control their blood in a similar manner or even get just the self-healing ability, then defeating them would become very difficult. Only an S-rank ninja could defeat them quickly. Fujin's clone didn't hear their words. After seeing Sara seal Zankoku's body, he dispersed himself. The Uchihas were unaware that the fight and the result had been witnessed by him. Chapter 188, The Dangerous Uchiha Clan. Fujin received the memories of his clone. He opened his eyes but closed them again. He thought, "Damn. I never thought they'd be so strong." That said, that Grand Priest turned out to be the real surprise. I never imagined he'd be able to face off against an elite Jounin and two Jounins at the same time and still have an upper hand. I can understand the healing ability, but why was he immune to Genjutsu? Fujin tried analyzing but didn't reach any conclusion. He sighed, "I hope Hiruzen is able to get the Yamanaka clan to read all his memories. Autonomous healing and Genjutsu immunity are skills that would be immensely helpful. Though considering that I never saw anyone use this in Naruto, it's likely that these abilities can't be gained without worshipping Jashin. I hope that isn't the case." Sara sealed Zankoku's body parts. He also collected as much blood as he could that was scattered on the ground. After he was done, Masaru asked, "What next?" Akihiko looked at Sara and asked, "Are the kids safe?" Sara nodded. "Haru delayed the collapse of the cave until I could raise the barriers. He also put them to sleep. With all enemies dead, they will stay safe." Akihiko said, "Great. We will pick up Miko and Shunko and rest in the barrier. In a few hours, the pills should bring our chakra back to full. We will return the kids and head back to Konoha before the effects of the soldier pill ends and exhaustion hits us." Everyone nodded. The group moved towards Miko and Shunko. Both were resting. Genji's clone noticed them coming. After confirming that they weren't enemies in disguise, he dispersed himself. Miko saw Akihiko and asked, "Did we win, uncle?" Akihiko nodded, "Yes, all enemies are dead." Miko asked, "Where is Fujin?" A worry could be seen on her face. Masaru chuckled and said, "Don't worry, he is with the kids along with Haru. We will be heading there as well and will take a break for 6 hours." Miko blushed on hearing the chuckle. She said, "All right, let's go." She walked ahead of the group. Shunko still couldn't move properly. So Genji picked him up and carried him. They arrived in front of the collapsed mountain. Akihiko looked around to see a bunch of dead bodies. He said, "Collect and store all the dead bodies. We will hand them to the authorities of this country." Everyone nodded and began sealing the dead bodies. Except for the bodies that were buried under the mountain, the remaining bodies were stored in storage seals. They entered the place where Fujin and Haru were resting. Fujin and Haru got up on seeing others arrive. Haru asked with a smile on his face, "Is it over?" Akihiko nodded. He looked at everyone and said, "We have killed all the Jashinists that we had investigated. All the priests, devotees, and servants are dead. We collected most of their bodies. Their leader, the Grand Priest, had a terrifying healing ability. So he had to blow him to smithereens to defeat him. His body has been completely destroyed." Fujin was surprised. His thoughts ran at lightning speed. What the hell? Shit, these guys have the same idea as me. But they want to keep it with their clan instead of passing it to the village. Fucking hell. Their coup should be very close. So it's understandable that they want to build up some trump cards. But, should I let this opportunity slip? Though Fujin tried his best to not show any emotions on his face, Akihiko noticed that something was off. He asked, "Is there any issue, Fujin?" Fujin looked back while thinking, shit, he sensed that something was off. He quickly said, "No, I just have one doubt. But I wasn't sure if it would be appropriate to ask." Akihiko said, "Don't worry, just ask. If it is inappropriate, I won't answer." Fujin nodded and said, "I was wondering how you could place so many ninjas under genjutsu and control their actions. After all, I heard that it is difficult to control more than one at a time." Masaru smirked and commented, "That would have been inappropriate if it wasn't already known to every veteran ninja in Konoha." Sara explained, "The genjutsu that we cast on them jumbles up their memories. We implant some false memories in their mind and make them surface at the right moment. So, we don't control them, rather they just make a move due to their false memories. For instance, the ones who killed the Seal Master all thought that he killed one of their loved ones." Fujin's face became serious. He said, "Wow, that is a very strong method. No wonder we won so easily." However, Sara shook his head and said, "Though this technique might seem very strong, it isn't that effective. In war, most enemy ninjas will frequently disrupt their chakra to ensure that they aren't placed under a genjutsu by us. So, unfortunately, it isn't that effective anymore." Fujin instinctively wanted to disrupt his chakra but controlled himself. He thought for a bit and nodded, that makes sense. Though if it did work as well as this time, Konoha might win all the wars without any problem. Akihiko nodded, yeah. Unfortunately, it won't happen again unless we create a more advanced genjutsu. Anyways, we can discuss this later. For now, let's rest. Everyone sat in a meditative posture. Fujin recalled Sara's words and analyzed the implications of such a jutsu. Though nothing could be seen on his face, his thoughts became very grim. Damn. No wonder Danzo, and perhaps Hiruzen too, chose to let Itaka cause the massacre. If a coup were to happen, I don't think the Uchihas would be a match for Konoha in a head-on confrontation. But with this jutsu, they could wreak havoc in Konoha. My memories from my previous world have faded a lot. But I remember this very well. Every single Naruto fan thought that the Uchiha coup was a stupid idea. The Uchihas were just no match against Konoha's entire might. They didn't even know that Fugaku had Mangekyo Sharingan. Everyone agreed that in a war against Konoha, they would be vastly outnumbered and lose pointlessly. But, with jutsus like these, their chances wouldn't be low. They could plant fake memories into multiple ninjas. When they launch a coup, they would trigger these memories and cause chaos within every clan and prevent or delay them from joining the war. After all, we aren't at a war. Normal ninjas won't go around disrupting their chakra for no reason. And since Uchiha control the police force, coming in contact with many ninjas isn't an issue for them. More importantly, the way Sara spoke, implied that they don't have a better way to control multiple enemies. But, he didn't speak about controlling just one. Assuming that they have stronger genjutsus which can't be broken off normally, the Uchiha's chances of winning a coup would rise even more. If they could cast a genjutsu on some clan patriarchs, then they could even get allies in the coup. Especially Fugaku with his Mangekyo. Obito was able to control a perfect Jinchuriki despite not having any genjutsu-based Mangekyo ability. So Fugaku placing some clan leaders under his control isn't very far-fetched. In addition, if they were to plant some fake memories into Umbu or root members, they could launch sneak attacks on Danzo and Hiruzen too. So the coup would definitely not be a one-sided affair. Instead, it would be a bloody war. A war that would shake the foundations of Konoha and likely trigger the Fourth Great Ninja War. A war that would likely wipe Konoha off the map. Fujin sighed in his mind. He had never taken the Uchiha coup seriously. Even though the information he gained wouldn't have any impact on how the events progress, he realized how deep the waters in this world ran. A clan that was isolated and schemed against for years still possessed the power to shake the entire ninja world. He concluded, I never thought I'd say this, but Itaka's actions make more sense now. With the Konoha leadership staying stubborn with their restrictions on the Uchiha clan and the Uchiha clan wanting to revolt, the end result would be the complete destruction of the village. His choices were to either see the village and his clan be destroyed, or just see his clan's destruction. That said, I wonder why Itaki and Shisui didn't compel the elders to drop the discrimination against the Uchiha. Wouldn't that have dropped all the plans of a coup? Fujin analyzed for some time before stopping, leave it. I can't think of a reason that I can be sure of. Perhaps there were more factors involved or the village elders convinced them that the Uchihas needed to be monitored and kept on the outskirts of the Konoha. Either way, this issue is way beyond my power to even consider interfering. For now, my main concern is, how the heck should I take that Grand Priest's body from them? Asking shamelessly is out of the question. I'll end up buried along with the Jashinists. Could I try to steal? No, they will keep it in the Uchiha clan compound. Not only do the Uchihas monitor it, even the Umbu and Root monitor that area. Should I try to tell Hiruzen? I could approach him innocently and tell him that the Uchihas lied. But, does he have the power to take the body back from the Uchihas in that case? Fujin analyzed this method carefully. After a lot of analysis, he concluded, it is too risky. For starters, the Uchiha clan and Hiruzen are at odds. Hiruzen might not even ask them for it. If he does, he will most likely mention that I reported it to him and the Uchihas might get very upset with me. Though they aren't going to live for long, I don't want to antagonize them when rewards aren't a certainty. Worst case scenario, what if Akihiko and the rest deny that and demand Hiruzen to verify my information? I'd be fucked if Hiruzen asks a Yamanaka to inspect my memories to get proof. Shit. There is no good way. Fujin thought more until an idea struck him, that might be possible. But it is still very risky, but at least my life won't be threatened directly. More importantly, there is no guarantee of success. And even if I succeed, I might not get what I actually want. He tried to think of more options before giving up. I can't think of any other way. Leave it, I'll just have to prepare better in order to ensure that my identity doesn't get leaked. Chapter 189, Concluding the Mission. The Konoha ninjas rested for 6 hours. Everyone recovered most of their chakra. During this period, Miko and Shunko's wounds were healed twice more. The wounds that could be seen were all healed. Only the internal wounds remained as no one had the expertise to deal with them. When everyone was well rested, Akihiko said, "Work with Sara to get all the children out. I will contact Hiroshi." He left the underground barrier and opened a scroll and laid it on the ground and made a hand seal. At the next moment, a man was summoned. He opened his eyes and looked at Akihiko and asked, "Are the children safe?" The man was a clone of Hiroshi, the leader of Kizagakuer. Akihiko nodded, "They are. But we are very far away from any village. You'll have to call your forces here to escort them safely." Hiroshi nodded and handed Akihiko 6 scrolls and said, "You can summon them. They will make the arrangements." Akihiko took the scrolls. He was about to summon them when Hiroshi's clone bowed deeply and clasped his hands together in front of him as he expressed his thanks. "Akihiko-san," he said, his voice full of emotion, "I cannot express how grateful I and the entire Kizagakuer are for what you have done. We will never forget it." He stayed bowed for a few moments longer, his head lowered as a sign of respect and gratitude, before straightening up and looking at Akihiko with a deep sense of appreciation. Akihiko nodded and said, "It's fine. We too don't want to see young children having to suffer. I am glad that they are safe." Hiroshi's clone smiled. Akihiko opened the 6 scrolls and activated them. 6 jounins of Kizagakuer appeared. Hiroshi's clone instructed them to follow Akihiko's instructions and asked them to arrange for the children to be sent back. All 6 jounins used whatever means they had to send messages to the villages from where the children went missing. When the villages got the messages, they immediately sent their forces out to bring the children back. Meanwhile, Akihiko informed Hiroshi's clone about the Jashinists that kidnapped the children. Hiroshi's face grew grim after hearing how strong and numerous the enemies were. He upgraded the mission rank to S. Akihiko passed a few scrolls to Hiroshi's clone and said, "These contain dead bodies of kidnappers. You can use them to placate any anger towards you." Hiroshi accepted the scrolls and thanked him again. In the barrier, the Konoha ninjas made a tunnel to exit underground. Haru cancelled his genjutsu. The kids began waking up. The Konoha ninjas brought them out of the underground. They left the kids in the care of the 6 jounins and just stayed around to ensure that nothing unexpected happened. One of the 6 jounins had brought a lot of food materials. They cooked a delicious lunch for the kids to calm them down. The jounins also checked every child and verified whether every child was present. They sighed in relief after verifying that all children were safe and present. After a few hours, Kizagakure ninjas sent by the villages began arriving in groups. They took the children from their villages and left after thanking Konoha ninjas. After the last group left, Hiroshi's clone handed Akihiko the mission rewards for the upgraded rank. He thanked Akihiko once again and handed a scroll to one of his jounins with all the details of his talks with Akihiko before dispersing into a rock. The Konoha ninjas left. Shunko and Miko were having trouble moving at full speed. So Genji and Haru carried them on their backs respectively. After a day's travel, the group returned to Konoha. Akihiko said, "Great work with the mission. It was completed successfully. I'll report the mission to the Hokage. Sora, take the kids to the hospital. Masaru, inform their parents about it. Others can leave." Akihiko looked at Fujin and said, "Fujin, I was a bit skeptical when Miko suggested your name. I accepted because we didn't have time to wait for someone else. But, you have done a great job on the mission. Keep training hard." Fujin nodded and said, "Thank you, Uncle Akihiko." Shunko saw Fujin with some jealousy in his eyes. Of the 3 Jounins to take part in this mission, Fujin was the only one who wasn't injured. While he and Miko had to be hospitalized, Fujin didn't even have a scratch on him. The group dispersed. Fujin walked back to his home while analyzing what he should do next. "I have to talk with Teru and Hoka and check whether they are ready to form a team with me and Miko. Though I'll have to check up on Miko first and see when she will be fit for undertaking missions. I also have to do some research to come up with a proper plan to sneak in. If I can't find and learn methods that would assure me of safety and anonymity, then I might have to scrap those plans. No point in risking my safe environment for rewards that I might not even get. In addition, I also have to learn vacuum cannon. And since it needs so much chakra, I won't be able to use chakra for anything else when I train. Once I learn it, I will get back to training lightning release jutsus. The next set of jutsus will focus on enhancing my body. They should be exciting. Anyways, it's late afternoon. Though the traveling and fighting have been exhausting, my soldier pill should last until tomorrow afternoon. So I might as well train like crazy today. I'll take a 24-hour break when the drawback of the pill hits me. Though I should check on Miko in the evening." Fujin made a hand sign. A shadow clone appeared next to him. Without a word, he flickered away. Meanwhile, Fujin rushed to training ground 23. He went to the center of the ground and sat to meditate as he went through his memories of using vacuum cannon jutsu. He visualized the jutsus while analyzing. "I wanted to make a very thin but long vacuum core. However, my attempt failed and I ended up creating a way bigger vacuum bullet core and hence managed to pour a lot of wind chakra into it. So it became faster and more powerful." Fujin got up and began forming the vacuum core. Soon, he poured wind chakra into the jutsu and expelled a vacuum cannon at the tree in front of him. The cannon hit the tree at the center. It didn't just create a hole in the tree, rather the impact of the jutsu exceeded the width of the tree. The top half of the tree was sent flying into the air. Any tree up to 150 meters in line with that tree was destroyed similarly. A smile formed on Fujin's face. "Powerful. Very powerful. I don't think any normal defense can withstand this attack. The only ones that possibly could resist might be Raikage's defense and Susanoo. I wonder how this attack will fare against Gaara's defense and Rashomon. Still, the preparation time of this jutsu is more than twice that of the vacuum bullet. The chakra needed is close to 8 times it. I need to modify the vacuum core to be more efficient for such a huge size. And I need to see if I can achieve a similar result by using less wind chakra. Otherwise, breaking defenses would be the only thing this jutsu is capable of. Fujin began working on his ideas. He tried changing various shapes for the vacuum core but didn't have any success in improving the jutsu. He trained until his chakra ran out. Not having any success, he went to his home and freshened up and rested for a bit. In the evening, he bought a few dango and went to see Miko. After reaching the room, he saw that Miko and Shunko were both resting in the same room. He walked to Miko's bed and said, "Hey. How are your injuries?" Miko snatched the box of dango from his hands and said as she opened it, "I am doing well. It's just that since I was hit by such a strong lightning jutsu, the doctors want to keep monitoring my internal organs for a few days. I'll be released in 4 days." She opened the box and began eating rapidly. Fujin's eyes twitched as he said, "You know that they can't run away, right?" Miko said with her mouth full, "They ran away last time." Fujin needed a few seconds but realized what she meant. He replied, "Ah, your mother. That makes sense. Ha ha ha." Fujin's laugh annoyed her but she kept eating till she finished every last dango. A smile appeared on her face. She looked at Fujin and said, "Now if she gets angry, I can put most of the blame on you." Fujin waved his hand and said, "Running away is my speciality. So don't worry, she won't have anyone but you to yell at." Miko snorted in displeasure. Chapter 190, Vacuum Cannon Jutsu. Fujin said, "I'll talk to Hoka and Teru about forming a team." Miko apologized with a dejected look, "Sorry, I can't accompany you right now. But we can go on missions after 4 days." However, Fujin shook his head and said, "No, take a week's rest. We will take missions when you are back to full strength. And don't worry about taking a few days to recover. I'll need some time to master my new jutsu." Miko asked, "Is it that cannon-like jutsu you used on our opponent?" Fujin nodded. Miko snorted with some annoyance, "You are getting stronger once again." Fujin looked at her with deadpan eyes, "My eyes didn't evolve mid-fight." A grin formed on Miko's face. She smugly said, "That's right." Fujin thought, "I have always been curious about how Sharingan works. As every 3 Tomo Sharingan wielder is ranked at Jounin or higher rank. Is it just everyone's hard work or does Sharingan's advancement bring other benefits to the Uchihas?" Fujin asked, "By the way, do you feel anything different or any improvements after your Sharingan evolved?" Fujin's question surprised Miko. She fell into thought. Even Shunko paid full attention to Miko. After some time, she said, "I feel like my chakra reserves have improved slightly. But the increase isn't very high. It's probably around 15 to 20%. More importantly, my chakra seems to be slightly denser. And, I am guessing that my eye powers will be stronger." Fujin nodded and replied, "That's a great improvement." He analyzed, not too overpowered, but still very good nonetheless. Assuming that the improvements are higher when advancing to 3 Tomo Sharingan, it would make sense why every Uchiha with 3 Tomo Sharingan would be a Jounin. Especially considering that any advancement in Sharingan needs them to suffer emotional trauma or something similar. Anyone who experiences that will be more likely to train intensely. Miko stared at Fujin who was lost in thoughts. She asked, "What are you thinking?" Fujin casually replied, "Nothing. I am just wondering whether you'll have any chance against me now. Immediately a tick mark appeared on Miko's forehead. She muttered, one of these days, I'll trap you in a genjutsu and do things to you that you could never imagine. Fujin was caught off guard by her reply. He thought, shit, since when did she become a pervert? Ninja village my ass, it should be called a pervert village. Fujin said, yeah, right. Anyways, I'll see you later. Get well soon. He was about to leave when Shunko said, Fujin, when I am healed, I want to fight you. Fujin stopped and looked at him and asked, why? He said, though I don't want to admit it, you performed better than me in the mission. I want to fight with you to prove that I am stronger. Fujin looked at him with a deadpan expression, what's in it for me? He turned around and said, I have no interest in fighting you. Fujin's attitude offended Shunko. He felt that Fujin was insulting him. He shouted, are you afraid of fighting an Uchiha? Fujin replied without turning around, not really. I just don't have any time to waste. After speaking, he disappeared from the room. Shunko was very annoyed. He asked Miko, is he always this arrogant? Miko was thinking, a fight between these two? It would be fun to see Shunko go crazy in rage in a few minutes. As annoying as Fujin normally is, he reaches the highest level of annoyance while fighting. Shunko asked again, Miko. Miko looked at him and said, you are just weak, Shunko. Miko's reply annoyed him even more. He said, do you think that a civilian orphan is stronger than all Uchiha? Miko replied, not all Uchiha, just you. If it was Itachi who asked, I am sure that Fujin would have accepted. Shunko immediately complained, hey, it's not fair to compare me with Itachi. However, Miko crushed every bit of his pride when she replied, why? Aren't you the same age as him? Shunko was left without any words. He just turned his head away from Miko and sulked alone. Comparing him with Itachi was indeed very unfair. After all, Itachi was an Umbu captain. A rank that signified that he was strong enough to be considered as Jounin and even go against elite Jounins. After leaving the hospital, Fujin treated himself to a huge meal and returned to training. After experimenting with all shapes, he reached the conclusion that staying with the same shape as the vacuum bullet core would be ideal. He used the jutsu again but frowned, no, though this shape is ideal, something doesn't feel right. He sat in meditation to analyze where the problem was while he recovered his chakra. After running multiple calculations, it finally hit him, right? I am maintaining the exact ratios I use in the vacuum bullet core. I don't need to maintain the same ratios. I only need the deepest layer of the vacuum core to be huge. Shit, this is so basic. Why did I miss such a simple thing? He thought for a bit before sighing, I got too excited. I need to keep myself calm and not lose myself in celebrating little achievements. He formed a vacuum core in his mouth. It had the shape of a cone in the front while its body was cylindrical. A very thin chakra film surrounded it. It was encased by another layer of vacuum which was divided into 6 parts. However, compared to what Fujin was doing earlier, this layer was very thin. Its thickness was the same as it would be when Fujin used the vacuum bullet jutsu. Thin threads of chakra flowed through this layer of vacuum. Soon, it was covered by another thin chakra film and winds began flowing around it. Fujin opened his mouth and launched the jutsu at the tree in front of him. A smile formed on Fujin's face as it ripped through all the trees in front of Fujin. He thought, good. I only needed 5 times the chakra this time. I saved 37.5% chakra without sacrificing the speed or power of the jutsu. With some practice, I should be able to perform it at the same speed as vacuum bullet jutsu. And, if I have enough time, I could make it more deadly by forming a much larger central vacuum core. With the form perfected, Fujin spent the rest of the night alternating between practicing vacuum cannon, meditation, and physical workout. He finally stopped at 8 a.m. He left the training ground while breathing heavily. Good. I only needed 20% more time as vacuum bullet. With time, it will improve even more, but there won't be any point in wasting more time to try to reduce the time needed forcefully. Satisfied with his progress for the day, Fujin went to Ichiraku. He sat on the stool and rested his arms and head on the table and said, "Bring me one bowl of every ramen." Since it was early morning, Tuka was preparing the essentials. He was surprised to have a customer so early in the day. Ayam came out to see Fujin. She and Fujin interacted often as Fujin visited Ichiraku rather often and they were of the same age. She was about to say hi excitedly when she saw his state. She asked in a worried tone, "Fujin, why do you look so bad?" Fujin looked at her and replied without lifting his head, "Nothing much. Just ended up training a bit too much." Ayam puffed her cheeks and said, "I told you to not train so much but you always keep training." Fujin sighed and replied, "Will you continue lecturing or get me something to eat?" Ayam sighed at the unenthusiastic reply and left to help her father prepare the noodles more quickly. Fujin ended up eating 8 bowls of ramen before leaving for his home. He made his way to the bathroom and turned on the faucet, letting the cold water fill the tub. He grabbed all the ice he could find in his home and poured them into the tub and jumped in to rest. With a deep breath, he lowered himself into the frigid water, feeling the cold seep into his bones. Despite the sudden cold, he felt a sense of relief wash over him, the cold water soothing his tired muscles and calming his mind. After resting for some time, he made a shadow clone and dispersed it. The clone that he had made earlier received his message. After a few minutes, he dispersed himself and sent all the memories back to Fujin. Fujin felt a slight headache but soon relaxed in the icy water. He spent an hour in the bathtub before heading to his bedroom and fell asleep. He ended up sleeping for 18 hours straight to compensate for exhaustion and the drawback of the soldier pill.